I'm curious, why bluegrass? You guys had to have grown up around it, I would think. I'm guessing here, but you guys are, I think, millennials generally in terms of generation.
Maybe not.
maybe borderline. The younger generations, though, younger than like hippies and boomers from the folk days in the 60s, younger generations almost always seem to be family driven in the bluegrass world. Is that true for the two of you?
It's very common. It's very common. I reckon it is true for us, But we didn't really listen to much bluegrass very directly when we were young people, but we did listen to stuff that had a lot of big harmony singing it. Our dad sang barbershop quartet music, and so that was a big deal with the harmony singing and like picking out parts. And both of our parents were old folkies, and they listened to stuff like John Denver and John Prine and Simon and Garfunkel. Yeah, the Carpenters. Yeah, anybody that had that real rich vocal layers, and John Denver in particular had some impact because he crossed over and had fiddle and banjo and dobro on his recordings. But when we became young adults, I met an old fella, and this is interesting that you bring this up because there's a song featured on this new record that's not out yet, and it's titled Snook Hudson, and you'll hear it eventually. But that was a real character that had a profound impact on me when I was playing just piano. I met this old guy down in Eastern Kentucky through some friends, and they had these little picking sessions where all these neighborhood folk would come over and jam and sing old standards and pick and sing. And there was an old piano in the schoolhouse where we would gather. So he made me beat on the piano with him to like I'll Fly Away or Will the Circle Be Unbroken or something. And it wasn't very long that I just was dying to play like banjo or mandolin or something. And one of my uncles had bought a banjo, so I ended up with the banjo. And that's the long and short of it. But we did grow up right here in Louisville. It's been a hotbed of bluegrass music since the late 1960s. Always been a relevant place in the music geographically for bluegrass music. Bands like the Newgrass Revival and J.D. Crowe and everybody from Vince Gill to Keith Whitley had kind of made their way through our town here. So that certainly, we're bridging the gap between those names that I dropped with guys like Steve Cooley and Jeff Guernsey, because they were around for all that stuff and worked directly with all those folks.
Yeah.
And actually the first bluegrass band that I saw live was the Hog Operation with Steve Cooley playing the banjo. So that was quite a while back.
Very nice.
The first bluegrass song that I ever heard was the Dillards doing Dooley. So, and he was part of that band too.
Very cool. I consider myself now, I didn't consider myself fortunate then, but I now consider myself fortunate to have grown up in Pikeville, Kentucky.
All right.
Which has the annual Hillbilly Days Festival, and bluegrass is thick in them there hollers up in there.
We're driving through there this weekend. We'll wave to your family.
Please do. You can stop by and have a meal at Mom's. I'm sure she would be glad to have you.
She'll put a pot of beans on for us.
She will. Probably already on with the weekend coming up. But I remember when I was a kid, I went to see Ralph Stanley and the Clinch Mountain Boys at Marlowe's Country Palace in a little roadhouse they had there in Pikeville. And I was probably 10 years old.
Wow.
And so just growing up around it, I didn't appreciate it as much then as I do now. I wish I had, because I was much more into, I want to be cool like rock and roll music. But yeah, if you're from this area, and by this area, I mean everything from the Appalachian Mountains out to, the far ends of the other side of Kentucky, you're going to grow up with it to some degree. So it's going to be there for you.